Well, hi everyone, and greetings from a snowy northern Michigan. I had some time around the house today, just relaxing a little bit and watching some YouTube videos, and I came across an excellent video of an interview of the three flat earthers that went down to Antarctica, and that would be Jaren, Isabeth, and Whitsitt. Now, they were on a very friendly interview here, and the host was kind of tossing them softballs, and as a result, they kind of opened up a little bit. Now, the Flat Earth has a number of targets that they like to go after, NASA probably being number one. Then we've got Bill Gates and Elon Musk. But another thing that they go after a lot is the Antarctic Treaty. They claim that you cannot freely travel in Antarctica because, well, the treaty forbids it. So that actually came up about an hour and 15 minutes into the interview. Let's see what they had to say.
Well, that's why I was saying Liz might have, like, do you remember whenever we were having that conversation, I was kind of asking questions about, like, private exploration, exactly what's going on, what can people do, etc. And do you remember that?
Yeah,
I
of
remember
course.
it.
I mean, she was talking about the 250K minimum per person, and that's just to get the Toyota Highlanders there. If people wanted to drive from, say, Union Glacier all the way down to the South Pole, or if they wanted a quote unquote special route, then it would need to be approved. There's all these forms that need to be filled out. Your insurance is even higher because you're not just going to the camp. Now you're going to be traveling. They have to hire up the cost for like any human waste. Maybe you might dump something out of the truck or whatever. And then obviously extra resources in case if they have to come and save you. So when we heard a minimum of 250K, I'm like, yeah, normal people just make an average living aren't going to pay to do this. Right. But that was literally the minimum. But even so, like, we were being told whenever we asked these questions, yeah, you can do free exploration, but we just won't save you. We won't provide resources and you're on your own. And I was like, so it's not really free exploration. Like, you could say free by definition of like, sure, do whatever you want willy nilly, but you're not going to have any support, any food, any resources. So,
well, no, not even that. Like,
put themselves in such a compromising situation.
You know, Alaska here in the United States is kind of divided into 5 different zones, all right? You have Anchorage and Fairbanks, that's 1 and 2. Then you have occupied Canada, which is where the capital, Juneau and Sitka are. And then you have Road Alaska, which means that at least it's on a road. Then you have the bush. The bush is the majority of Alaska. It's out in the rural areas. There's no trains, there's no highways, there's no nothing. All they have is native villages and airstrips. Now, if you get lost out in the bush, at least the natives are around and have snow machines, and they can maybe find you and get you to an airport if they know you're lost. You know, they know the area. In Antarctica, you don't have anything like that. And I find it absolutely amazing that 3 people who got free transportation down to Antarctica didn't prepare any better than this for the trip. Antarctica is a very hostile environment. Now, what they're talking about is they want free exploration of Antarctica. There's a difference in the meaning of the word free. For example, you can have free will, free speech, or you can have free beer. I don't think the free beer option is on the table. In order for them to drive from Union Glacier 600 or 700 miles down to the South Pole, they're going to have to airlift in heavy trucks for them, and the fuel for those trucks, and supplies for the trip. Then they have to have some of their people go out in advance to basically scout the trail, make sure there are no crevasses, and mark the safe trail. And, of course, occasionally leave some supplies so that they have something to refuel the truck and maybe get something to eat. Now, a 500-mile drive can be done here in the United States in a day. I think it may take a little bit longer with no roads over glaciers and ice in Antarctica. So let's just say it's going to take 2 or 3 days. They're going to have to kind of track them as they go down there, and then once they get to the South Pole, where are they going to stay? Who's going to feed them? It's not what we used to call a $100 hamburger, where we'd get in the airplane and fly up to an airport and buy a hamburger just for the joy of flying over there and flying back. So I find it rather incredible that they didn't prepare enough for this trip to understand the logistics and the danger involved in driving cross-country through Antarctica to something like the South Pole. It would certainly be well worth $250,000 per person to mount an expedition of that sort. But Austin was chomping at the bit to interrupt her, so let's go see what he has to say.
I pushed back on it, right? And I said, well, no, I've looked into this. And you know, to even try to go, I said, hey, so say I have a team of 10 people. We want to go and privately and freely explore Antarctica. I want to know exactly what it is that we need to do. And they said that you have to get environmental permit approval, like you have to get an environmental permit, and it's $250K to $1 million, so $250K minimum. And I researched this a year ago. At $250K to $1 million, and there's no guarantee that you'll get approved, and obviously you don't get a refund. And that's just one of the many different steps and permits that you have to get. Then you have to submit the actual route that you plan on going. That's not free and private, right? I mean, I said private and free, and she's like, then it has to be specifically approved. So right there, if wherever you're going to go, you have to submit a route and you have to get approved. And like, let's be real.
Well, Austin, good God, yes. Of course you have to do an environmental impact study and you have to get proper permits. That is an environmentally sensitive area. There are treaties governing that signed by more than 50 nations. And quite frankly, you have to obey the same rules that they do, and those are the rules. And again, you're not dealing with free beer here. Just because you're of age and can walk into a bar and legally buy a beer, it doesn't mean that you should expect the bartender to just give you the beer. You shouldn't expect the other patrons in the bar to buy that beer for you, unless maybe it is your 21st birthday. You know, that's just not the way things are. They're going through a tremendous amount of expense to mount this little expedition of yours where you want to drive cross-country and explore. All right? They have to know where you are so they know where to rescue you. They have to supply you. They have to check your route to make sure that you don't die. Antarctica is an extremely dangerous environment. Ask Captain Scott. It didn't turn out well for him, and he had a team of military men that were in excellent shape and had trained for months, if not years, for this expedition. They were very well supplied, and they still failed and died. Do you think you're going to get on a divided highway and just drive from Union Glacier down to the South Pole? It doesn't work that way, son. And furthermore, not only is this not a case of free beer, again, you're playing with words here. Privately explore. That means that you're self-funded. It doesn't mean you don't tell anybody where you are. That would be a violation of the Antarctic Treaty. Everybody needs to know where everybody is down there and basically what they're doing. They need to know where to go look for you. It is just incredibly naive to think that you will be allowed to wander off from Union Glacier and go wherever you want, falling into whatever you happen to fall into, and expecting somebody to come and get you. You are going to be a Witsit-sickle. Hashtag Witsit-sickle. Now let's go on and see if we can talk to maybe the only flat earther on this panel that has a lick of common sense. Jaren.
I did think they made a lot of sense. I mean, at least to me, that once we'd flown over Antarctica, it made sense to me because you look at that and you're like, okay, people cannot freely and independently travel here. They will die. It's just
right.
I mean,
sure.
We flew for hours above just blanketed of ice, and there's crevasses that you can see that are actual divots in the that are deep. You would just fall down there. So anyway, their whole story is, you have to tell us where you want to go. Then what they do is they drive cars and they excavate. So they drive and they say this is safe and they mark it, and then they drive and then they let people come behind them. And they say now you can go behind us on the path that we left you, and then they'll leave like food rations. So there's a whole these, and they basically say, you could decide to do whatever you want. That's what they say. So like if you wanted to go with me, you and Austin and Elizabeth, we wanted to go there, we could contract with ALE to do whatever we want. Now there's going to be a price because whatever that we want to do, they're going to have to go in front of us and do it. They clearly work for the government. They clearly are given government permission. So there's the whole thing. But like Austin said, number one thing you got to do is an EPA assessment, which is going to cost. So already that puts people like us out of the commission to do that. So it's definitely a way you could lock down a place, but also what you would do in a very dangerous place. You probably
I mean, to be fair, she said like you can do whatever you want, as in tell us what you want to do and we can try to make it happen. She also said there's only 3 companies in all of Antarctica that have been approved to actually do that, to take people. And obviously they have a relationship of constantly staying to code and having all these approvals. So like you go through them and then you have a chance of really, but she also said, well, depending on what you do, if we haven't done it before, then we have to also try to go get approval. Like she just straight up said that.
That's what I was going to ask, is ALE has gotten general approval for what they do.
Or just
But
what they
anyone
do.
that's going to go outside of the parameters of what they do, here comes the Antarctic Treaty with all the additional approvals and requirements. Like Elizabeth was talking about,
Yeah.
250 on average. You need funding for. This is why in the ancient past you have to get exploration trips commissioned by kings or princes or governments. The average person just doesn't want to spend several $1 million funding people, trips, vehicles.
Jaren's comment actually made an awful lot of sense, with one exception, and that is that ALE does not work for the government. They work under the government. They work under government regulations. They're not a government entity. They're a private company. Now, the host went on after this to offer a helpful suggestion. His idea was to bring a manned drone down to Antarctica and put the three of them in it and let them fly around. His argument was, well, if you don't touch the ground, you can't drop any waste. I don't know if I agree with that, but that was his thought process. Obviously, you have shipping costs for this drone. You have fuel for the drone. The fuel is an environmentally sensitive chemical. That's going to have to be accounted for. Are any of the three of those guys pilots? Or do they think it's like a push-button thing? And, there's up, down, freely explore. No, it doesn't work that way. And finally, and this is very typical, environmental protection in Antarctica. What if the drone crashes? How will the bodies be recovered and how will the wreckage be mediated to minimize the impact on the environment? So yes, you do need an environmental impact study because things don't always go right. Remember Captain Scott? Now, to be honest with you, I haven't really changed my mind. The flat earthers that went down to Antarctica went primarily as luggage. They were there to see the 24-hour sun. They had no other reasonable or thought-out plans. I don't even think they packed until the night before the trip. This really shows that didn't really put much thought into it. Jaren did the best, and when he went down there, he was self-aware enough and looking for truth enough that he recognized what he saw. And what he saw was a globe Earth. He did announce Friday night in front of over 5,000 people on a live stream that he is leaving flat Earth. It is an untenable cosmology. In 10 years, they have made zero progress. They are still making the exact same arguments, and these are his words, not mine. And I applaud him for it. I think that took a lot of courage. He's taking a potential financial hit because he had over 100,000 people on his YouTube channel, which was a quote-unquote flat Earth YouTube channel. I think that he brought an awful lot of people away from this nonsense that is flat Earth when he left because he's a very influential person. But it may be devastating to his channel, and that's a financial devastation to him as well. But he did what was right, and we need to support people that do what's right. Now, his friends in the flat Earth, 10-year-long friendships, are turning on him. He's been essentially excommunicated just as Whitsitt has. But Austin and Jaren, reality will welcome you back with open arms. We're friendly people. We're more than happy to help you with this journey if you would like our help. So, this is Bob the Science Guy, signing out from Northern Michigan. I do appreciate you stopping by the channel, and make sure to give me a like and subscribe. We have links to the Telescope Project and the funding for the Telescope Project if you are so inclined. So, until next time, take care.